Alrighty guys, we are back with another Nintendo Switch 2 news video because news continues to happen for this system, which I guess makes sense because it just got officially announced with all these games and stuff, so now companies can start talking about it. So we're probably going to have this for the whole month of May of people just coming out with updates every single day when it comes to these companies out there. But without further ado, before we get into the news video, you already know I'm about to ask for it. We are so close, like literally so close to 17,000 subscribers. If we can hit that, that would be absolutely phenomenal. We've been uploading videos every day. So I appreciate all the support y'all have been doing on the channel. Y'all have destroyed the channel. Well, that makes it sound like it's not doing well. Y'all have killed the channel. Wait, that also sounds pretty bad. Y'all have crushed. The channel's done amazing. So thank you. Without further ado, let's jump right into the news. This has to be like the funniest thing that I have seen. I know we said that Mario thing was pretty funny, but this is just funny considering who it is coming from. EA talked about the Nintendo Switch 2 today and defended the price of the games and the system and all that stuff. In fact, EA had a very long statement, and I'll go ahead and read that out to you. I quote, "We're not in Kansas anymore, and Nintendo brands are not just for kids. Because of generational advances, many of the first generation of children who have played on the NES are now in their 40s and 50s, and they have kids of their own. Because Nintendo has massive brands and happens to be one of the rare brands that appeal to all people of all ages, it might very well make sense to price the console for these groups. As a function of play hours and their value, Nintendo's prices are perfectly reasonable. I fully expect the Switch 2 to exceed 100 million units sold in its lifetime, just like the predecessor. This will be the 5th Nintendo platform to exceed 100 million units, and every one of these have been family-oriented. Sony's PS1, PS2, and PS4 are only others in the history to sell this as well." The reason why this is funny is it's coming from EA. And of course, EA would defend this type of behavior because look at their history. EA is known for probably being the worst gaming company of all time. I think, according to reviews, I don't know, I might be wrong, but I feel like a few years ago, there was this like thing talking about the worst gaming companies to work for. I feel like I remember EA being at the bottom, or just in general the worst company of all time. I think EA has always been there. I could be wrong about that. I do think it's interesting though, fun fact, that Doug Bowser used to work for EA and now he's the president of Nintendo of America. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting to see EA talk about this, and I think this is the first time they have been very positive towards Nintendo, because it was very clear that they did not think the Nintendo Switch was going to be a success. That's why a lot of their games didn't come on till way later the system. And now it really thinks that it looks like we're going to have a lot of EA support within the first year of the system, which I think is super exciting because there's a lot of titles that the Switch is missing that it should have had from EA. So it's cool to see EA be a part of the Nintendo Switch 2 within the first year, and I guess it's good to see that they have high confidence of the system. It's just funny that they're the only company to make a statement like this, and who it's coming from, EA, like the most corrupt gaming company out there. I just thought it was kind of poetic and funny because, you know, people are talking about the prices of the system, the games, and of course, EA being as greedy as they are would be the ones that are like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. So I wanted to talk about the big Nintendo eShop update that happened. Obviously, if you have not seen, it went from orange to red. The orange color is completely gone. It's kind of hard to get used to that, as you know, it's been orange since the Nintendo 3DS. In fact, they also removed the E icon. It is just now a regular E in the title of the eShop now. That's also going to be interesting to get used to. But it's not the first time that we've seen the eShop be red. A lot of people don't remember this, but for the 35th anniversary of Mario, the entire Nintendo eShop was red for that. Now, what's interesting about the update is that this update is supposed to combat at the shovelware of games that are on this eShop. If you don't know, the eShop has so much shovelware. They have a thing called current offers that is going to be indicating like all the good games compared to the shovelware titles. This is supposed to combat at that. It's supposed to prioritize the more quality games than the shovelware, essentially. I also thought what's very interesting about this brand new Nintendo eShop update is you can now view Nintendo Switch 2 games on the eShop. And it will, of course, show to you that the system cannot get that game because it is a Switch 2 game. It's just weird to see that you have the Switch 2 games within the eShop, but I guess it makes sense since it's all the same platform. But definitely very interesting. I feel like one thing to point out is I feel like the eShop has been even more laggy than usual. Obviously, the eShop, because of the amount of games that are on there, mainly because of the shovelware, the eShop just cannot load. And I was hoping with this update they were gonna do something to where it would actually run a lot better. But I do know the Nintendo Switch 2, one of the big features for them, one of the focuses, was making sure that the eShop would run perfect on there. So I guess that's gonna be a nice thing to have. I know this is Switch 1 news, but I feel like this will be towards the Switch 2, at least indicates what's gonna be happening with third-party games. So I feel like this is a pretty big deal we're about to talk about. Assassin's Creed Odyssey Cloud Edition will be shutting down. Ubisoft has already announced it. They did not provide any reasoning as to why it is shutting down. The reason why I think this is interesting is obviously Odyssey is going to be a game that I think Ubisoft is going to want on the Nintendo Switch 2 as a full native version of the game. Ubisoft is going to be putting out so many ports on the Nintendo Switch 2. You're going to see every Assassin's Creed game that did not hit the Switch 2. And Odyssey is probably going to be one of the first titles that Ubisoft puts out. I'm telling you, Ubisoft is going crazy on the Switch 2. I guarantee you're going to see so many games on there and some titles that would be like, wow, that's a really old game. Didn't expect that to be here. Like something like, I don't know, The Division 2. I feel like that's going to come to the Switch 2, and people are going to be like, what? That is a game that was released a long time ago. Ubisoft's going to go crazy, and I feel like the fact that they are shutting down the Cloud Edition of Odyssey kind of proves it, because it's just random to close it down right now. I think the reason why is because they have a Switch 2 edition in the works, and if they're doing that, what's the point of having the cloud service available if you have a full native port? Telling you this is what's happening. Expect a lot of Ubisoft third-party games announcements within the coming months, because I do think Ubisoft is going to go crazy on this system. Which, speaking of third parties, it has been found that you can no longer get a Nintendo Switch 2 dev kit right now. They are currently out of them, which I feel like this does help one of the other rumors that was out there a few months ago, that Nintendo didn't start providing dev kits to third parties until right around January, which I think makes sense with some of the games that are being rumored and already titled over there in other countries where they're rated, all that type of stuff. I kind of believe this rumor, especially if dev kits are already out. All these third-party developers probably rush to grab one as soon as they possibly can, which is probably why, if you've noticed, we only have one Ubisoft title officially announced for the system. And also you have things like Assassin's Creed already being rated onto the system. That's coming at a later date. I feel like this dev kit being out is because all these third-party companies, developers, they rush to get them, and you're going to see a lot of third-party games announcements come out of nowhere within the summer due to this. Because it's been noticeable that a lot of third parties are missing from this, or at least, I don't want to say a lot, but just there's some third-party games that would have made sense to already been announced for this system, as we have heard rumbles of them coming to the Switch. And I really do think these dev kits play a part into that. Hopefully all these developers are able to get one, that way we can get all these games to the Switch 2, because it could take a while to make these versions come to the Switch 2, but from what it's sounding like, the Switch 2 is a pretty easy system to develop for, so maybe we don't have to wait too long for these third-party games. Like I said, expect a lot of third-party games news, I feel like, within the summer and fall. Especially for the holiday season, you're going to see a lot of titles just come out of nowhere. They're going to rush to be a part of the holiday season, as they want to be a part of the Switch 2's first year, and being a part of the holiday season, that's going to be big sells for them. I put this in here too because I feel like there is probably a Switch 2 edition of this game in the works, especially since it's coming out after the Switch 2. But Funko Fusion has been announced to finally have a physical copy. I don't know if the Switch version actually even came out, but I know it constantly got delayed. And then a few months ago, it was revealed that Funko Fusion was a massive flop for everyone. And I thought I read that the studio was going to be shutting down or had layoffs because of this. But they announced a new Funko Fusion, which is Funko Fusion Deluxe Edition. It's a bunch of new characters being added. I know the big thing that they were advertising is that The Office will be a part of it, but they did announce that a Switch physical copy is happening and it's coming out in the month of August. I feel like with how bad this game ran on Switch, because I'm pretty sure it came out, if it hasn't come out, it probably runs horrible on Switch. They're gonna have a Switch 2 update, I feel like, especially considering by the time this game releases, we'll already have the Switch 2, so it makes sense to have a Switch 2 edition of the game. For those that were wanting the physical, I did see some people get upset when that got canceled, so now you have a Switch copy coming, and it's a newer version that no one was expecting. A deluxe edition of a game that literally no one asked for. So I know Nintendo has been promoting the GameCube like crazy over the last few days. I think Nintendo just dropped an F-Zero trailer yesterday where they're showing F-Zero off on the GameCube Classics app for Switch 2. And I noticed that someone went ahead and did a comparison of Wind Waker on the GameCube and onto the Switch. And from a visual standpoint, you could see some differences here with the Switch 2 edition of the game. It's pretty cool to see this. I think visually, wasn't really expecting much of a difference, but there's kind of a clear difference, I feel like, if you compare these images. Obviously, it's not like the biggest difference in the world, but I think it's really cool that we're seeing these type of textures being, I don't know, update is the correct word. I'm guessing it's higher resolution that's making this look good, but it's looking really nice, and I think it's really exciting to see this, especially as we learn for what more GameCube titles come from this. This is probably one of the coolest things that Nintendo is doing. Not to mention, I think a feature that a lot of people are not talking about is how some GameCube games out there, like F-Zero GX, for example, has a widescreen option because for whatever reason, they developed something back in the day for certain GameCube games to have widescreen. And that mode's going to be utilized with the games that had it. So you can play F-Zero in widescreen mode through the GameCube Classics. And it's really looking nice, especially Soul Calibur, all those titles. I'm really excited to see what other games come from this. And it's just really cool to see online support being added to these games. Lastly, we have news regarding the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons. And it is actually going to be having a quieter Rumble HD feature, which I do know that those rumbles, they can get pretty loud depending what Switch game you are playing. And the fact that they're implementing this, I do think is a nice feature. Again, one of my complaints with the Joy-Cons though, is there's so many things that are into that controller that makes it so expensive. And the fact that it's already more expensive because of the whole tariff situation, I wish Nintendo would have gotten rid of some of these features that are in the Joy-Con. Really, Rumble HD, it's a thing that has so much potential, but not really truly utilized. I feel like it's just a normal Rumble feature at this point. Should have been left out, but, or just something Rumble, but not Rumble HD because no one really utilized that part. I don't know. I think the Joy-Cons are a cool concept that are so expensive, and what makes it so expensive doesn't get utilized. And for that, I think it's frustrating, especially with the timeline of events that we are in right now with everything getting expensive and the system and Joy-Cons already being more than past things. I don't know. That's just how I look at it, but I am excited for a more quiet version of the HD Rumble because there are games out there that they go crazy on those Joy-Cons, especially if I had the controllers laying around and like I'm trying to find them and then I'm in a cutscene and they're like going absolutely crazy on my desk or something. Like, it's very loud. Very glad to see a quiet feature being added. And guys, that's everything I have for you. Let me know what you guys are thinking about the news that we talked about today. I feel like the EA story is funny, and I think the Ubisoft story is very interesting because I really do think Ubisoft is going to go absolutely crazy on this system. Like, I feel like a lot of Far Cry games are going to show up on Switch 2. I feel like some of their titles, like, I don't know, Skull and Bones, I don't know, do they want to port that to the Switch 2? I don't know. I know that was a massive flop for them, but maybe the Switch 2 version would sell well better for them because People are hungry to buy games for this system. Because like I was telling Coleman, actually, once June 5th is done, there's really not many titles that are coming out in June. So something like the Radu game, I feel like is going to do crazy well due to the fact that there's just not much happening in the month of June after the release. Guys, I've been talking for way too much. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out the Twitter, check out the Discord server, the Instagram, come MONADO Marine, $5 a month, helps out the channel tremendously, especially as we head to New York City, where that's the most expensive thing I've ever done for this channel, but it's okay. It's gonna be awesome. Guys, I will see y'all, excuse me, I will see y'all in the next video. Peace. That was weird. Why did I don't know. Sometimes I do some weird things.